I'll do a practice, and you put down some gold. You go, I didn't press record. You got to do it again.
That's a story of my life.
Yeah. All right, Rob. Thank you so much for doing this, man. How are you?
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, really good, man. How are you?
I'm well. I'm sort of getting the knack of these. I've got like a run of them, and I'm just starting to feel a bit more comfortable doing it, talking to someone that isn't there. And I used to do a YouTube channel. And
do you know what number you're on now?
I think I've recorded about 15.
Wow, wicked.
But I've released, I think 13 is tomorrow. So cool. Yeah, I've got 2 more in the bag. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of strange. I was talking to, I'm not one to name drop, but the guy I had on last night, I was chatting to him, and I said, look, I'm just amazed that some people are like, yeah, I'll do that. Like when I asked Tim Lurch, he was like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And I mentioned it to him. And he's like, mate, I'm just a guy living up in the middle of Seattle. I just play guitar. I want to make music. I want to make people happy, and it sounds like a good thing. So, yeah, I'm up for it. So
that's amazing.
It's really, really bizarre.
It's wicked how like you can see how humble musicians are, even though they've kind of, in our eyes, they're gods and absolute legends. I know I was listening to the one that you did with Carver Hine.
Yeah.
And when you said, like, you're kind of like a legend in our eyes, he kind of freaked out a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to see players that are that accomplished being so humble and just normal humans like all of us, you know.
I know. I think he said that he thought of himself as just still a student of the guitar, which is just, I mean, we all are. We're just all at different levels. I even got a message from Dave Kilminster. I just sent him a message. He said, yeah, no, that sounds cool. He said, I'm on holiday, but yeah, I'm up for that. I'm like, holy fucking shit.
So having listened to a few of these, was Kilminster there while you were at ACM?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, golden days.
I got him for term 2, which was modes of the major scale and all the shreddy Steve Vai kind of stuff. So it was perfect.
Yeah, amazing.
Perfect. So yeah, he was really cool. And I said that I was a student. He said, yeah, I remember. I was like, do you?
Wow.
Because you must have had thousands of students. I don't know. Maybe the name Love sticks out a little bit.
You know what it's like as well, obviously being a teacher yourself. It's it can be hard to keep track of students. And
I know, mate. I teach 5 kids I think it's 5 or 6 kids today, Thursday morning. I still can't remember their names. I'm like, morning, mate.
Sup, dude.
Some I remember. The ones that practice, the ones that do it, I remember their names. It's the kids that just, they roll in. They're like, you still haven't got that G chord down. It's been 6 months. Can we try again? But yeah. But it's cool. I mean, how's life? I mean, let's talk about you teaching at the ACM. How did you get that? How long have you done it?
My story with ACM is a bit of for me, it's a really special one anyway. So like yourself, studied there. I did the whole shebang. I did the 2 years of diploma and higher diploma, and then 2 years of a degree. And then went out into the real world and started playing and started teaching. But I kept in touch with a guy that kind of guided me through both diploma and degree, a guy called Roger Davis.
I know Roger. Yeah.
And at the time, he was running what we had at the time, which was the part-time school.
Yeah.
And I was just desperate to get involved with anything that kind of that was doing. It just had such an amazing atmosphere. And there was a tutor called James Bettridge who dropped off of because it ran on a Saturday, so it's kind of unsocial if you've been out gigging on a Friday night, etc. So he dropped off of that, and then I took that position. And then a couple of years into that, Rog decided to leave, which was a big shock for everyone because the part-time school really was kind of his passion and his baby. I had a big conversation with all the tutor cohort there because there were some tutors that have been there I'd sort of see them as heritage tutors that have been there for a long time, you know. But nobody wanted to step up into that manager position. So I sort of put my head above the parapet and was just like, I'm happy to do it if everybody stays on board. I can't be asked with hiring and firing and all of that. But if everybody's cool with being still committed to it, So then I got a full-time contract just managing the part-time schools. That was kind of 2 days a week, 3 days a week, something like that. But a year into that, ACM decided that they didn't want to run the part-time school anymore to free up the available space for rehearsals and stuff, because that was a main complaint from a lot of the degree cohort, was that they couldn't book rooms. And as I was on a contract, it was tricky. I think it was tricky for them to get rid of me. So I ended up teaching a bit on diploma and degree.
Yeah.
And then that was 2017.
Okay.
And I've been there ever since.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
How's it changed? When did you study? What years did you do the diploma and degree?
So I left straight from school. I left school in 2006.
Okay.
And I was there until 2010.
Right. Okay.
Which
so you were there a couple of years after me.
A couple of years after yourself, and I think probably the last of what I'd call the golden age.
So who was still teaching when you were there?
When I was there, we had Jamie Humphreys. We had sadly a couple of tutors that are no longer with us. We had Mike Caswell, and Matt Hazlitt, who was a real special one for me. Pete Friesen, Giorgio,
Mike Goodman.
Yes, Goodman. And actually, Goodman was again another quite pivotal person in my life. I knew Goodman previous to ACM just through Rog. Right. Never actually was taught by Goodman while I was at ACM, but then after I left, I went for lessons with Mike, and he massively sorted my playing out. I felt like especially when I was studying, I was in a band called Stars of the Search Party, which were touring, and we got featured in Kerrang, and so I felt like a rock star, which probably wasn't a good thing as I was starting to sort of get into my degree, and I really didn't do very well. Managed to get the sort of bit of paper at the end, but I just felt as I left, I just needed more, and I couldn't figure out what it was that I was lacking. And Mike's amazing at that. He picks holes in everything and builds you back up, you know. Really.
I thought Mike, out of all the teachers there, I thought Mike was the best teacher. And he said he came out quite blatantly, and he just said, "Look, I'm not the Jamies, the Guthries. I don't do any of that stuff." But the lessons we only had them for a term. It was LPW on a Monday, and he sidelined. We had 2 hours on a Monday, and there was 1 week where we had to learn the Bryan Adams and Mel C song.
Oh yeah,
when you're gone, I think it's called.
Yeah.
He said, "Look, this is a really easy song. I'm going to give you all my cheat sheet that I use for when I have to gig this song."
Was it just numbers?
No, I think I've still got it somewhere. I think it was chord names. So it was like C, F, G. And then he tabbed out the solo underneath. He said, "Well, just the chords are a piece of piss. You'll piss this, no problem. We'll look at the solo. Remember, it's C major pentatonic. It's not A minor. Stop thinking of it." And he said, and then he got through all of it in about 40 minutes. He said, "Right, now we're going to do this." And he had all of us map out a G triad all over the neck. Took us about 40 minutes. He said, "You're going to tell yourself what interval you're playing when you play it. You're going to know exactly. If you don't know the note, then you don't play it. You got to figure." And we did it all across the neck. He's like, "Now you're going to add in the second. You're going to go up from every root up to the second. Or you hit a third, you go back to the second." And within 40 minutes, I don't know about everybody else, I'd mapped out the G major pentatonic all across the neck without visualizing any boxes. Yeah, I was like, "This is fucking amazing.
Unbelievable.
This has changed my life."
So the method sort of for him boils down, and it's so beautiful that I use it almost every day myself now. But the idea obviously being that if you take a standard scale that's 7 notes, there's going to be a triad in there. So why learn 7 notes? Just learn the triad. Once you've learned the triad, then like you're saying, add a note.
Fill in the gaps.
Just that one. Just that one. And then slowly over time, you really build an appreciation for different intervals, how they're related to chords and blah, blah. But yeah, he massively changed the way that I view music and guitar, you know.
I am trying to get him on, which I was struggling with dates, but I've been out with him I've seen him out and about a couple of times. And I said to him, I said, look, that triad thing that you did, I have to tell you that it changed the way that I appreciate and play and learn scales and modes and all that shit. And he said, that was really nice of you to say, because you throw it out there to 30 kids or 30 young adults and you got no idea if it's going to stick. So it's really nice to hear back. But yeah, I just thought he was a great teacher and a great player.
Super cool story from him as well. I believe if you get him on, like, definitely quiz him about it. But I believe that he took over the technical studies after Guthrie.
Yes.
And it was midway through as well. So the students had Guthrie, and then Mike Goodman.
Okay.
So again, just another super humble musician that's amazing. Full of just unbelievable wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
What a dude.
Yeah, a lovely guy. So what's it like now? Because I looked on the ACM website, and this is the last thing we'll talk about the ACM, and it doesn't say Dave Smith, guitar tutor. It says performance tutor. Has there been like a shift in how the different instruments are taught, or?
I think potentially. I don't know off of the top of my head if there was ever a decision around that. I think when I say the golden era of ACM, I think ACM is still a very valuable place at the moment. I think it if used in the right way from students, it's extremely valuable to kind of recreate. My role, I'm always telling students, my role is just to try and simulate what it's like out in the real world.
Yeah.
And trying to get you up to speed so that you're not drowning when you leave.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, I think the way that the industry is progressing constantly, they're opening things up. So like we've got like a big games department now, and we've got a new, what would you call it? A new campus opening up in Brixton.
That's
going to be dedicated to a lot of stuff like games and stuff like that. So they're really trying to sort of find their, not even a niche. I think they're being smarter than that. I think they're being really wide so that students can pick their niche, and hopefully we're there to support them through that journey. But just that the industry is so wide now.
Yeah.
It's quite a tricky thing. I know back in my day, it was like, this is what a session player does, and now it's like, well, almost all of that's redundant. There's no studios, other than home studios and stuff like that,
Yeah. So are students still taken through like all the music theory that I learned, all the technical exercises, the scales, the modes, and learning and performing songs?
Yeah. So the big difference, the degree is pretty similar to what you'd have experienced if you were on the degree years ago, but the diploma is very different. And part of the reason for that is that when I was there, it wasn't funded at all, so I had to fund my time while I was there. Whereas now it's a fully funded college course, which is great because obviously a lot of students don't have access to. I know when I went, there was a lot of kids from private schools and blah blah who had access to that money that gave them the opportunity. So now the opportunity is open to everybody who's willing to or wants to learn music. The problem with that is that it's government stipulated, so there's elements of literacy, elements of numeracy, etc., that have to be in there because it's a college funded, it's a government funded college course. But theories in there. They still have repertoire developments that happens on a Monday. I do for year ones. I'm the main of a team of 3. I'm one of the main for performance workshop. So they still get that. They still get technical lessons, but then a lot of their college work is all towards building a portfolio and building kind of websites and stuff. And there's specific briefs. So if you're a songwriter, there'll be like kind of traditional songwriting briefs and etc. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, there was none of that when I was there. There was none of the websites. There was no social media. YouTube was 5 years away. So yeah, I mean, everything. There was a lot of there was an emphasis on music business education, pre-production, post-production, which I found kind of useful. But I was just there just to learn, just to play.
I think one thing that's not changed and a student said this, an ex-student who's now come back to work with our, we've got an A&D department which helps any students because they've got like dyslexia or anything like that.
Yeah.
She's come back, and what she was saying is that a lot of the lessons that she had, she didn't find the information relative to her until she had left.
Right. Okay.
And then she went, I wish I'd have actually listened and actually like tried to absorb that information more. And I was like, that can't be, that's literally my story. I almost looked at everything, was like, that's not relevant to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the bare minimum. But then when I've left, I've gone, I really wish I'd have dug in at that point and really nailed this stuff, you know.
Okay.
Music business is definitely one of those.
Yes. Yeah. I think I scraped through music business. I think the lecturer at the time, I think it was after we did a term 1 assessment, and he marked it all, and he came back term 2, and he's like, we're going to have to do term 1 again because nobody passed. You all fucking don't know the difference between like the basics. Just like you don't know the difference between streaming. Was it stream? Was streaming?
It wouldn't have been.
I don't know if it's streaming or file sharing.
Might have been like file sharing or maybe distribution and stuff like
Something
that.
like
obviously
that.
That's a big model that's now changed.
Yeah.
That I'm sort of trying to wrap my head around at the moment with my original stuff. It's just absolutely mental.
Excuse me.
Bless you, mate. You're all right. Down the wrong hole. No, you're cool, man.
That'll teach me for drinking on live on mic.
Yeah, I've got a Coke on the go, but I'm so scared of drinking it. I don't want to burp at you.
That was my first outburst. So there we go. Go on. So you were saying distribution.
Yeah, so obviously everything now being digital platforms as opposed to physical platforms, and just trying to get my head around all of that. And I think the biggest thing with my originals band is going to platforms that have no real interest in pushing your music. It's as literally as easy as uploading something nowadays, isn't it? But years ago, the model was you sign a distribution deal. That was quite an involved thing. And then you knew that your CD was going to be potentially out in HMV or wherever it would be. And then you can see from the sales whether or not it's a successful thing. But now it's like, well, maybe upload it to DistroKid as an example. Yeah. Now what? Do you know what I mean? There doesn't seem to be any pushed into any...
I've not done any of that. I mean, I kind of, after having kids, I kind of stopped writing and doing anything creative. Excuse me. Now they're a little bit older. I've reached out to a few people and said, do you fancy doing something? Like, yeah. But yeah, I have. The last time I did original music was 2010.
Right.
So again, that was pushing things onto radio. There was no Spotify. There was no nothing.
So
it was
a really scary statistic. So a few years ago, so I also teach on the songwriting, which is now called the Creative Artist course.
Right.
But within inside of that, obviously, we talk about creating EPs, albums, recording it, the best way to record things, and then releasing it and how to release it out into the industry properly. But probably 3 years ago, I dug into some research, and it was about 60,000 tracks a day was getting uploaded to Spotify. I then had a look back again at the beginning of this year, and it was 100,000 tracks a day.
Man.
And it's now sort of an exponential curve. So we're going to see 200,000 tracks by next year. Especially with AI and the way that's shaking things up. So scary stuff. So it's like, I've created something. How am I going to make it stick?
How are you going to cut through the noise?
That's it.
Just be so fucking good that nobody can ignore you.
Yeah, that or TikTok.
I still haven't done TikTok.
TikTok, yeah, man. It's not good.
I don't want another thing that I have to do. Is YouTube and Instagram not enough? But I had Bobby Jarvis.
I don't know.
No, he's...
Oh, I do know. Yes, I do know. The funny guy.
Yes, big mistake.
Yeah.
I had him on. Yeah. He said, no. He said, I started on TikTok and then it moved to Instagram because Instagram started doing short form videos. And he's like, no, you should do TikTok. You've already got the concept. Just set an account and just chuck it at it. I was like, but it's another thing that I have to do. Why do I have to do the thing? I don't want to.
And that's it. It's the craziest thing is it's just job lists.
Yeah.
There's nothing more I hate than just a long job list.
Yeah. Did you upload it to this? Did you upload it to that? How long did you spend on your thumbnails? I didn't spend any time. Oh, you need to you need to really be thinking about your thumbnails. It's like, I don't want to be thinking about thumbnails.
No, and for me that is also, it's like anti-art. Do you know what I mean? Like we're so creative and we really want to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm so again with the original act that I'm in at the moment. I'm loving creating all the content for it and editing the videos and blah blah blah. Again, that's super creative for me, and I'm definitely finding my feet with that and really enjoying it. But that's not why I play guitar. That's not why I play music.
Yeah.
And I think it takes definitely a different kind of human than me. I'm super dyslexic,
Right.
and find processes quite tricky. So I have to follow kind of pretty rigid structures for myself to stay on top of things.
Yeah.
And just adding this to the list is just, you just end up with endless lists.
Yeah, I know. So how do you find dyslexia with sight reading and chart reading and things like that?
It's a really interesting one. And I always tell it, I talk to students about this a lot. So when I was studying, obviously a lot of us were kind of made to believe that kind of reading was what you needed to do. We had a masterclass with Jamiroquai when I was at ACM, and they came in and asked, Rob Harris.
Yeah, Rob's coming on soon.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I think, finally nailed him down, but yeah.
Yeah, what a legend. But somebody asked him, what's his reading like? And he was like, I don't read anything. And I just remember the whole class looking around at our sight reading teacher, just like, if Rob Harris is saying we don't need to read, man. Like,
but then you asked Pete Callard the same question.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that was my excuse sort of growing up, was that I've got a problem with my brain.
Yeah.
I can't read, and I definitely can't read music now because of this problem. I tried coloured sheets in front of music and blah, 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 but it just wasn't going in. The pivotal point when that changed was when I went for my first ever teaching job. You had to have grade 5 classical guitar if you were a contemporary musician, because they brought up students through both classical and contemporary sort of studies. And then once they'd got through their sort of initial year or two, then they would split off and go on to either classical or contemporary, and then do the grade syllabuses. And so I had like 3 months or something to get my grade 5 before the September.
Okay.
And with the promise of a paycheck at the end of it, all of a sudden I could read. And so I don't believe personally that that's had an impact. My dyslexia has had an impact on my ability to read music. But my dyslexia is also not, I don't get the kind of the jumbly word thing that people say about the letters are jumbled around. I don't really get that. I'm just extremely slow at reading. And I really struggle to pull information off of a page. I'm much better if someone's telling me, or if I'm listening to somebody, you know.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So the whole crux of this podcast that I do is, the focus on how do we get better. So I'd love to know what your approach to, first of all, what does getting better mean to you? What does it look like? And how has it kind of changed over the years?
That's a great question. So my process at the moment, I, as much as I can do, stick to. Let me reverse quickly. I noticed something in myself that I always fought against as a kid, kind of early on in my adult life, and that was that I'm a real stickler for structure. And as a kid, I thought I wasn't. As a kid, I would rebel against that, and I'd be like, no, I'd never wanted a standard 9-to-5 job, because the idea of driving somewhere and getting somewhere and doing the same thing day in, day out, kind of hurts my brain a little bit. But the older I've got, the more I've realised actually I'm a real stickler for structure. So if I can do, I'll get up at 6 and try and get an hour in before 7. And if I can get an hour in before 7, then I know that I've kind of got what I'd consider kind of like my stretching or my maintenance, or and a lot of that involves like free play. I do a lot of things where Bernard Purdy, the drummer, he's got some great albums on Spotify that are literally just drum tracks. So I'll throw that on with maybe like a drone note or something, and I'll just jam along with that. Just Bernard Purdy. So I'll just have a little play along with that. Sometimes it's literally Scalic. Sometimes it will be anything I want. Sometimes I'll be really restrictive. It really is. And I just sit down with a coffee, and it's not too hard work, but I know then if I'm super busy in the week, at least if I've got that hour in, I don't beat myself up in the evenings if I'm potentially having a glass of wine, watching a bit of shit on TV. You know? I know that I've got that hour in, because that used to really bother me. And then I don't know about yourself, but I tend to do this self-deprivating cycle where you go, I've not practiced, so I feel shit about myself. So I'm not going to practice because I feel shit about myself. And now I feel even shitter about myself. And you just, you end up spiraling. And then months go by and you've not done anything. So I try and get, as I say, I try and get that hour in. On top of that, if I can do, it's mainly around kind of work. So like a good example would be like I work at the Royal Marines, and I do a private school just before I get down there. Okay. And then there's a bit of a gap after a student. So I've got about an hour and a half that I have to myself, make sure I pack a couple of books with me. And then I've got an hour and a half in an environment where I've got to work or be on my phone to entertain myself.
Oh my God.
So that's what I've always tried to do. And it was the same when I was a Perry in schools. Just take a big bag of books in with me, and hopefully someone doesn't turn up, and I get to shed through some stuff that I'm working on, you know.
All right. And do you use anything to measure like progress or anything like that? Do you kind of say, right, at the end of this week, I'll have the first couple of bars down for Cannonball Rag or something, or I'll get that first Steve Vai run on Shy Boy or something like that?
I should do 100%. I should do. I don't tend to. I get very in and out of things very quickly, so I get very inspired by something and then not inspired by it. So for me, that inspired moment will be when I will be getting it down. Yeah. And I'll be setting myself a specific thing for that time. I definitely do a lot of recordings. Okay. I don't post barely any of them, but they're really for my own. I guess that would be a way that I would track it. Yeah. So over a couple of weeks, if you're looking at something particularly specialist, you know, you can look at when you were doing it at 75% of the speed and fumbling your way through it compared to a week or two later. But the big thing that I struggle with practice is just the available time to do that, and the amount of work that I do around teaching. I definitely struggle to have practice time that's not preparing for something. Yeah. And that never really feels like practice. It never scratches that itch. Yeah. You know.
Okay. All right. So, were you ever, or are you still sitting down doing scales to the click kind of practice?
Again, it's a good one, because like a metronome is an extremely honest way of practicing. I think my advice to any young student would be that it is pivotal in development. But the older I'm getting, the more I'm understanding how feel plays a place with inside of music, and especially the guys that the players that I adore. It's the feel that I adore more than, I mean, like Stevie Ray. Like if you take Stevie Ray as an example, if you were to put him against a click track, there's moments that are that are really close to just like almost indiscernible what kind of rhythmical figure he's playing, but he always pulls it back, and it's always extremely musical. So that's part of the reason why I practice a lot to Bernard Purdy and any drum tracks that I can get hold of, especially as a kind of songwriter and part writer myself. That's the thing that I get excited about. If I can hear a really tasty drummer, that's then when my brain goes like into full creation mode, and then I'm laying stuff down, you know. So I find, yes, at points click tracks are great, but I do find them a little bit sterile, if I'm
Yeah,
honest.
I did a couple of. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I did about 2 years, kind of on and off lessons with Martin Goulding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, guys, he is like super analytical but like sharpened my playing up more than anybody else ever has.
Sure.
And our lessons would go, whether it was online or I'd go to his house, he'd be like, get the book out, turn the click on, start warming up, start doing your thing, whatever it was. Let's say if it was like groups of 5 at 100 BPM, just start running those 5s. And he'll be sat there and I'll be doing it for like 15 minutes, like fucking, I'll be shaking my hand out, like constantly running. And he'll just go, that third note's a little weak. Just slow that click down to 80 and just work on that third note. I'm like, how fucking hear that?
Yeah.
He's like, no, all right, no, you got it. Just stay. All right, you got to spend another week at 80 now just to make sure that you can get that thing fine tuned, and then we'll bring the click back up. I was like, son of a bitch. And he would do that. Like, we did this for years, maybe, like I said, 2 years. And then I was doing all my function gigs. I was doing all the tribute gigs where everything's like, you've got to play the part exactly. And I was at a jam night and I got up and played and I couldn't fucking improvise. I was all
Right.
over the place. I was like, what the fuck?
And was that because you were playing exercises?
Right, I was like,
right.
I now need to, like, how can I get this 16th note triplet run into this? And then I don't know if you can see this green Strat here.
Yeah.
I came home that night, tuned it to E flat, put on a Hendrix record, and just started jamming with it. And I was like, this is fucking. That's what I should be doing because this is fucking music.
Yeah, and that's the. It's really tricky, isn't it? Because what was it that we got into music for, and why did it attract us? And it was never something to a metronome.
No, never. No, mine was Oasis.
Right.
Like from 95 to 97, that's all I listened to was Oasis. And then, I got my guitar and I just learned as many Oasis songs as I possibly could and then kind of regressed back through music. But it was always the song. And I remember certain people would ask me, like who are your favourite guitar players? I was like, I don't really have favourite guitar players. I have favourite bands and songs that I fucking love and albums I adore, but I never listen to them just for the guitar player.
And then that's when there's those players that are those amazing crossovers like Matthias Asato.
Oh, fucking yeah.
Players like him, right, which are just uber tasty.
Yeah.
But then also have that technical ability to just throw it in there every now and then, and that's a bit of fire, you know.
Yeah.
So another thing that I like to do, I've got I like to try and combine books if I can, if possible, like sort of study. I've got like I'm sure you can see sort of behind me, I've got some Calyx cubes. They're literally just full of just instructional books. I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to stuff like that.
I've got them kicking around all over the place. Real books, jazz books.
That's it, man.
Yeah, all of them.
So one book I've been really liking at the moment is just... It's almost like the Omni book from Charlie Parker, but they just break down specific licks, and it might be like a 2-bar phrase, or it might be a 4 or 8-bar phrase.
I think I've got the blue book.
That's the one.
Yeah, I've got that in one of my gig bags.
So I was using that the other day just for a bit of fun, trying to just sharpen up a bit of reading and just trying to get some kind of other sounds into my playing. But the way that I was using that was I had the real book next to it, and I was soloing over the real book until it got to a change that I found that was like the same 4 bars essentially over a similar chord progression. Yeah. And then I'd pull that lick out and throw it into kind of what I was doing. So I'm trying to simulate the real life moment, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And likewise, I do a similar thing with, I've got a folder on Instagram where I like things and then save it to, and it might just be somebody, like there was a Matthias Asato lick the other day that was just that was killer, that I'd never thought about playing pentatonics like that before. But again, I'll take that out and try and force it into something that I'm already doing, and then hopefully then I've got access, because again, another big thing for me is the block that you get from the practice room then on stage. The guys that I'm out with at the moment, there's a few moments where I kind of have to solo, and I kind of stupidly said to the sax player when we first started the band that should we just keep all the solos actually improvised? Like that would be super cool. instead of writing stuff and then just parroting yourself each
Yeah.
gig. But I kind of shot myself in the foot, because you realize after a few gigs, especially if you're playing back to back, like you're on tour or something, you start to hear yourself repeating yourself, and you're really trying not to repeat yourself, but you're like, oh, okay, maybe my trick bag isn't actually that big.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you've also got to, like I said, that the small tunnel between the practice room and the stage. I think there's kind of a twofold problem. I think one, you've got to be not afraid of fucking up on stage, so you've got to sort of step out a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've also got to be willing for somebody else to hear it. You fuck up, and then they think that guy can't play. You've got that fear, because I think Instagram and YouTube and TikTok has just built this environment that when everybody improvises and plays, they do it perfectly. And if you don't, you suck.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be a little bit vulnerable and just sort of step out and say, I'm going to try something new.
I think in both of those situations, both of those are quite internal conversations.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that more recently I've been trying to avoid. Only because, again, that self-deprecating kind of spiral of doom. I get that live where I might play something and it's not quite come out the way that I hear it in my head, or the way that I wanted it to sound. And then for the rest of the song, maybe even the next song, I'm fully beating myself up internally to the point where I'm not very present. I'm probably not that interesting to watch. God knows what's going on with my playing, because I'm not listening. You know, I'm listening to myself, calling myself a twat all the time. You know,
why did you try that? You absolutely, everyone's going to be looking at you now. Yeah,
right.
Your head goes down, and
head goes down. You try and get into a little shell, and for me, that's like the worst thing, because playing live is generally one of my passions in life. But when you come off stage and you've beaten yourself up so much, you just feel terrible about yourself. It's like, what am I doing this for? You know. It's hard. It's
a difficult one to get out. I found that actually imagining yourself holding a knife by the blade and letting go of it helps.
Okay.
I had, I don't know if you've known this, but I'm a recovered drug addict, an alcoholic.
Okay.
And one of the kind of thought processes, whenever something negative happens, we just fucking cling on to it. And we just hold until it fucking rips us to pieces. And someone said, like, if you held onto a knife, a sharp cutting knife, and you held onto it, it's going to shred your fingers.
Totally.
Just let go of it, and it can't do you any more harm. And it's the same thing. Like, and it's just like a psychological, almost like a little movie or a trick that you play, that you just literally just envisage yourself just dropping this knife, and it kind of works.
It's things like that. A big part of kind of growing through music for me has been noticing the similarities in other areas of life. So there's a great saying, I can't remember who said it, but the saying is, once you see the way broadly, you see it in everything.
Okay.
So as a martial artist, getting to, like Bruce Lee, you never fear the man who knows 100 kicks, you fear the man who knows one kick but has practiced it 100 times. That kind of mentality. When you get to a level where you've experienced that and you've been through adversity, then you can see and apply that to anything else in life. And it's just like you were saying then with any sort of addiction issues, like holding on to something and letting it go. I'm 110% going to try that, you know. But that's kind of where I want to. I don't know. I'm very busy at the moment, but if I were to have some free time, there's more psychological side of music, and especially music performance. Because I'm not an anxious person. If I would assume anyway, if you spoke to a lot of people that knew me, they would know me as a fairly confident person. I'm very outspoken. I will talk if I feel the need to talk, and I feel like I can add something to the conversation or debate, and blah blah blah. So I feel like a very confident person. I've always been a confident performer, stepping on stage. Like, everybody gets nerves, but it's never stopped me. I would never say I have anything to do with anxiety or blah blah blah. But there's something changed, and I really want to try and understand that. Because that definitely has affected the way that I approach playing and my guitar, because especially over the last 6 months, I'd say I probably play things a little too safe.
Yeah.
And I want to feel free. I want to be able to explore those outer areas.
Something somebody else said to me, who was a long time performer, said, look, if you're starting to feel a bit self-conscious or anxious, just got two things you can do. You can just stare at the back of the room, pick a point at the back of the room and just stare at that, or pick one or two people in the crowd and stare at them. Just give them, make actual
make them
eye
feel
contact,
awkward,
and they can feel awkward. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you start to look, because there was a thing that I'd be on stage and I would just be really self-conscious. And people say, look, you just need to come out a little bit more. Like, you're a great player. We love having you here. You just need to come out a little more. And the singer said, just pick a couple of people in the crowd. Helps if they're female and attractive. Just look at them dead in the eye. You don't have to stare. Just give them a quick look in the eye, and it'll make you feel more comfortable on stage. And it worked. Do it with guys. You can pick points of the room, something for you to focus on that isn't your feet or the pedals or your neck. And it just starts to open. You just start to see that, like, oh fuck! Look at the size of the room. Look at all this. This is amazing.
Absolutely.
And
I don't know if you've had this as well, but this was kind of a reoccurring thing, which made me then realise, like, oh, maybe I've got a problem with the perception, the way that I'm seeing myself in a live situation, is that you'd play a gig and you'd get off and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so glad that's over. And then somebody else from the band would just be like, oh my God, dude, that was killing. Like, really enjoyed playing that show with you. And I'd be like,
did we play the same show?
I thought I was never going to get a call back for this.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, you're picking up the phone again and it's them again. Oh, are you free for this date? I was like, what's going on here then? Because I'm thinking I'm absolutely awful at this point, you know?
Yeah.
But then still getting the call back.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah. I think if I make an absolute fucking hash of something, I know it. And yeah, no, I've never quite felt like that. Like, if it's gelling and it's grooving, and once I got over my sort of stage anxiety, I could then just enjoy actually playing live and playing with people, and you'd get someone to...
do you ever record yourself when you're live? Do you ever take videos or anything like that?
I've done it a couple of times. I used to bring a little GoPro, and I used to stick it on the...
YouTube, well, he does actually did have a big YouTube following, but Yannick Wisdala, the bass player, I don't know if you know Yannick. No. Yannick's he was a London session player for years, moved over to New York, but he plays with, like, do you know Bob Reynolds, the sax player from Snarky Puppy?
No, I've heard of Snarky Puppy.
So he plays in his band, and I was lucky enough to see them at Ronnie's last year, which was blew my mind. But he's got a thing. He records every single live show, and he says it's really interesting seeing the difference of mentality when you come off, because sometimes you could come off the stage and go, that was a really, really good show, and then watch the footage back and go, actually that wasn't what's going on there? And likewise the opposite, you can think that you've actually had a really shocking show, and then step off stage, and when you listen back to that footage, you're actually like, oh, this was actually, like, very positive, and it was working way better than...
I heard an interview with Marty Friedman, who said something to the tune of, live is live. Who gives a fuck if you're playing it perfectly? You're there to do a show. And so I think there's so much to be taken from that, which I don't think a live recording, even from a video, would capture. Like, if you're really vibing with an audience, what you're playing then becomes secondary to what you're doing. And I took a lot from that. So I used to do a thing where guitar behind the head always sounds shit, but it looks fucking great. People love it. It's like, fuck, am I in the wrong? Shit, I've slipped to F. Oh! But yeah, it's like, I think there's an element to that which I don't think can get captured by just recording yourself. So I think you've got to be kind of in the moment with your audience or with the crowd.
Yeah, 100%.
So the other thing I'm going to talk about, and I asked this yesterday and I didn't get the answer I was hoping for, is there anything that isn't being taught that should be? To give you an example, I don't think enough people spend enough time on vibrato.
Oh man,
I hear so many.
Dude, don't get me started with vibrato. Oh my god,
so much of that. Even on you, like, killer licks and their vibrato, it's like fucking sort that out.
Yeah, I literally sat a student down the other day because I was like, dude, I love everything you play, but you just make it sound so crap. Just sort your vibrato out, man, and you'll sound amazing. It's that and bends. I do a little exercise. I can't remember if it was Goodman that showed me this. It could have been, but where you play the fret that you're going to be bending from.
Yeah.
You go up a semitone to hear where you're bending to.
Yeah.
And then the first part of the exercise is you bend the string from that fret you're bending from and slowly bring it up into the semitone or tone or however far you want to move, so that your ear can kind of feel that adjustment and figure out where that pitch is.
Yeah.
But then the real trick is then to do it without giving your ear that the bend up into pitch. You literally
bend
pre-bend,
the string, then pick it. Then how close are you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
And
did that with me as well.
If you can then jump between the actual fret that you're bending to and then bending to that fret, and the notes are the same, you're like happy days.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't do enough of that practice.
Yeah. I think we're all guilty of that, aren't we? And I think different guitars as well. I mean, I don't know about yourself, but I think I've got 11 guitars now or something like that. But
solid number.
I probably play 2. And I'd have ridiculous bonds with my guitar. I'm an extremely sentimental person, and I know that the number one guitar is the number one for a reason. And I think it's down to those sorts of things where just intuitively I know where those things are, and then when I move over to a different instrument, just the micro differences within the instrument just make a difference to the way that I sound. And do
you think there's anything else that should be taught that isn't?
I think overall just like sound and tone production is a real big one for me. It's funny because these are the things that I would consider kind of like my strong points. If I were to try and sell myself as a guitarist, I feel like my thing is my timekeeping, my tone, the kind of sassiness of the solos. I'm not a shredder by any means, but hopefully I'll make you feel something with a conversation, you know. But tone is always the one that students tend to come up to me like, well, how do you get a good tone? And it's such a strange conversation, because there isn't really a wrong or right, and I think it really does start. It just starts at your hands, and you have to go from there. Really, I spend a lot of time playing electric guitar unplugged. Again, I don't know if that's a normal thing or not, but my personal thoughts on that is that if I can make an electric guitar sound and sing without an amp, then I'm only adding more to it when I add more.
It'll chime when I really plug in.
Yeah.
The tone thing is, I never really spent much time on it until I got to the ACM. My tone was always, I never had valve amps until I got to the ACM. I'd always roll the mids off, and I just get that real chunky kind of sound. I was like, I'm really happy with that. And then we had I think it was Guthrie, one of his lessons, he said, a good starting point to get good tone is you need more mids than you think of, because the guitar operates in that mid-range frequency. So if you boost that, you can cut through, but you're not deafening people. I was like, So I turned up the mids. I was like, holy fuck.
This sounds killer, right?
Where did that come from?
A big one for me is the like gain. just everybody's just like, more gain, more better. Just like, no. So it's being able to roll it down until you do hear a discerning difference in your sound. Then you can add a little notch more. But if you're just going, this is the other thing that I hate about tone conversations, is that you end up just, oh, well, your mid should be at about 12 o'clock. Your treble should be at, all of that's rubbish. You know, it really
what
is.
What guitar, what amp?
Exactly.
What room?
Do you know Matt Schofield, the blues player? So
not personally, but I know him.
He had a video that I found really interesting, and he basically, like, if you think of the pot as a circle, from like 1 to 11, if we're in a Spinal Tap world, there's only really about a third of that potentiometer that is really actually making any difference to your tone.
Yeah.
So if you were to set everything up at 12 o'clock and then just sweep left and right with either your bass or your treble or whatever it is, just like he was saying, just take notice of where it's actually shaping anything.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that kind of got me into kind of exploring things deeper. It's really noticeable, and I really didn't think it would be. And obviously it's different on different amps, but that's always my starting point. I need to figure out where what is actually cutting and what is working, and then try and find the right, obviously, spot for all of those bits.
Yeah, the trouble is, I think the trouble with sound checks now, they're so quick. You don't have time to set your rig up and just sit there and just start fiddling knobs. And it's always the fucking guitar player's still chaining. It's like, he's still doing his sound. He's still pedaling with his fucking pedals. Could you just give us the fucking sound, please?
Yeah, getting that consistency live is really tricky. And I guess that's why a lot of players have moved over to the digital world.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm a massive anti-digital guy.
Okay.
I wouldn't say anti-digital. That's a little bit extreme. So on my board, I've got a Helix. I've got like the HX Stomp.
Yeah.
That functions a lot of my. I'm not a massive fan of modulation, like phasers and stuff like that. Delay and reverb is kind of like my home.
Yeah.
And I love my analog drive stuff. But the Helix gives me the option to go silent if I'm working. Kind of some of the wedding circuits are a bit wonky around my area at the moment, and there's a lot of noise complaints and stuff. So electric drum kits, no amps, and all that stuff. But the Helix also offers. I was trying to figure out a way to do almost like the gig rig, like a switching system.
Yeah.
So that I wasn't tap dancing, and because I'm in a band called Mellowmatic, and just between sections of songs, there can be like 4 or 5 different effects that need to go on and off. Blah blah blah. But the HX Stomp's got that thing where you can do screenshots. Yeah. So essentially set up a tone on one thing, hit a button, and then something else will appear within inside of that same patch. Yeah. And then I just got a little MIDI box to free up the buttons on the front of the Helix Stomp, so that I can actually use them almost like a traditional stomp box. And then the MIDI does the snapshots for me. Nice. So it's a kind of hybrid between digital and analog, but it's not. I've never really gelled with digital amps. We got Kempers at ACM at the moment, and they're great. So they do sound good, but there's something missing, and I can't figure out what it is. Yeah. I did see a product that I sent to my amp tech. He hasn't got back to me yet, but it's called I think it's called the Brown Box.
I've seen that.
And I think that was really intriguing for me, because that's definitely something that I notice. I've got a little Morgan PR12, which is like a Princeton reissue thing. Yeah. But I notice if I'm on tour, I could be like, Manchester, it sounds amazing. Liverpool sounds like trash. Yeah. And I can never really gauge why that is. The big thing for me, though, is the feeling like it's brittle. Mm-hmm. That's what I don't like. But then according to the kind of promotion material of the Brown Box, apparently that's all down to how much power the amp's receiving. Yeah. Just sounds a little bit like snake oil to me, though. So I'm not.
I don't know.
I'm not convinced.
I have seen videos that the guys at the pedal show have said, like, if your amp isn't getting the right wattage or ampage, it's going to make a huge difference. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know much about it. I don't know much about watts and amps and resistance. I'm like, oh, fucking hell. I remember struggling through that in science class at school. I'm like, do I have to do it now?
Oh, dude, I'm currently building a camper van with my wife. I got married in November, and part of our honeymoon is that we wanted to make our own camper van, and then we're going to go over to Europe and do a couple of weeks in Europe. Nice. And I'm just starting to tackle the electrics, and I'm exactly the same as you, man. Like, I just don't get it. It makes no sense.
Just get an electrician over. Just tell me what to do. Tell me what to buy. I don't want to figure it out. I don't want to know.
Yeah, it's too much for my little brain.
Yeah, it's enough. If you had £1,000, what would you get? Guitar or an amp?
I'd probably get an amp. if I'm honest. I think I've got enough guitars at the moment, and I've done that thing that I sort of recommend to students, is like, just try and tick every box off. Like, I've got a telly next to me, but that it's only a Mexican, but sounds killer, man. Sounds great. I've got a 335 type guitar, but it's an Ibanez. Again, anytime I play it, people are shocked that an Ibanez sounds like that, you know. So yeah, I think I'm all right with guitars, but £1,000 on an amp though,
you get a nice little Fender.
I tell you what I fancy at the moment. I really fancy one of those Blues Juniors that's just got the 3 knobs on the top.
Yeah.
Do you know the ones I mean? I've got a couple of friends that go out and gig them, and they just sound so good for just a tiny little amp. It doesn't break your back. And it's not digital.
Yes. I'm constantly on the lookout for old Cornford amps.
Oh, I don't know if you can.
What's that? Is that the Roadhouse?
It's just a Roadhouse 30. Wanted the 50, but that one was available, so I got that. But what was the Cornford thing for you then?
I had I got the MK1, the MK50.
Okay.
And it was just a fucking monster of an amp. Had to use a tuba 12 with it as well. And I sold it. Going back to my drug past, I had to sell it to pay off some debts. And I just regret it. Like, it's the worst thing. I would rather have taken out a bank loan to cover it, but I did what I did. But I'm looking for the Hellcat, the 35 watt.
Yeah.
You can get them in a combo, but they're kind of the same price. But yeah, just they're like rocking horse shit. You can't find them.
No, there's a few. I know. So I'm always scouring Facebook for Cornford stuff. I'm a massive Cornford fan.
Yeah,
and I don't know why. I know ACM had a few when I was there, and I know obviously Guthrie played through them, and Jamie was a big fan, and what's his Richie Kotzen. I went to see Richie Kotzen in Camden a few years back, and he was on them, and they're just killer. But I do know that my live performance workshop was used to be in the Electric Theatre.
Yeah.
And there was always a Hellcat 4x12. Pete Friesen was my tutor for that, and he would just dime it in perfectly, and it would just beautiful amps.
Lovely.
I've always loved the way that they turn down, if that makes sense. So you can have them really screaming, but they really react to the volume pop of a guitar just unbelievably.
Yeah. How do you make out? How do you think of the victories? Yeah, me too. I've had two of them.
I don't dislike them. They just don't have that. There's just something not there. No.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I love about Cornford, is that Cornford will go from. I'm a big kind of blues, and I think if you had like a big spectrum of sound, I'm that kind of warm, creamy kind of end, as opposed to extremely distorted and thin.
Yeah.
But it goes from that. It goes from, like, you can get lovely jazz and blues tones from a Cornford.
Yeah.
But then likewise, literally just by rolling the volume, you're then into like proper rock territory, like screaming,
skin peeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had two victories, and I just didn't. I think it was the Countess, which was one of the very first ones that came out, and I gigged it for about 2 years. I just didn't like the way that it reacted to me. It just didn't sit well. I found that it didn't take pedals very well, or the pedals that I had, I just didn't really gel with them.
Yeah.
And then I got a Kraken, which I've used twice, but I use them on function gigs. I'm like, this doesn't do clean. This is just overdrive. And I was really struggling to get that kind of funky music kind of sound. I was like, it's too bitey. I think I'll keep it, but yeah.
That's the thing that I love about the kind of Princeton reissue thing that I've got, is that it blows your face off. It's a 12 watt amp, but it's probably the loudest thing I've ever owned.
Yeah.
But it does that beautiful thing where it's clean, and then you just nudge it, and it's just on the edge of breakup.
Yeah.
Then when you punch it with something in the front, then it really starts to saturate and break up, and yeah, I'm a big fan of being able to play the guitar kind of through like that conversation that you get through an amp. That's another reason I don't like digital.
Yeah.
So like when stuff's feeding back and you're able to bend the feedback
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
sort of mold it into your playing. Yeah, and yeah, can definitely get that from that, you know, and that's tiny. So
Yeah.
1x12.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rob, I think we should leave it there. I think I've
Thanks,
taken
mate.
up far too much of your time.
Oh no, pleasure.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we got to do this, and I really
Likewise.
appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no worries, man. You're doing an amazing thing, and I'm listening as much as I can. I think they're wicked. So yeah,
Thank you.
keep on
Thank you very
trucking.
much. All right,
No
cool.
worries, man.